My view is obviously my personal view, but it's also the view of the hundreds and thousands of candidates that we speak to. And candidates have a voice now in work. Your employees have a voice. And you're never going to be able to please anyone. That post this week proved that you will never be able to please everyone. It's impossible. Everyone will have a view. Everyone will have an opinion. And, you know, like, so it's either one thing you go, all right, well, it's either 5 days or nothing. But then I guarantee you, like in what I recruit in, sales and marketing for food and drink brands, I would really, really struggle to fill a job 5 days a week in the office. If that's all it is, non-negotiable, I would. So it's going to be really interesting over the next 12 to 18 months how businesses react. And I think there's some that are really progressive that will just go, it's hybrid and that is it. And then they'll give people the choice. But there will be some who will go, it is 5 days. And I'm going to be very intrigued to see how that materializes, because from a talent perspective, are you really going to get the full mix of what you need based on that? I always stick it with my content. I'm always quite consistent. I have like certain things that I always talk about. So when I was diagnosed with ADHD last year, like one of the first things, you know, I thought to myself was, you know, I could sit here and not talk about it on a platform where I've got nearly 30,000 people that follow me, or I can talk about it, you know, and so I committed to myself, minimum one of those posts per week will be about ADHD. And I will be really honest about my story. And some of it, you know, I thought, God, shall I write that? No, I should. And sometimes when you think to yourself, like, should I write that? That always could be the best content. And then, you know, there's other stuff like I talk about recruitment. I'm very big about inclusive recruitment, which I know we'll talk about, and ED&I, and, you know, things like B Corp and being a founder. And I think, you know, people want to hear stuff like that now these days. You know, I see a lot of content which is, you know, professionally written or stuff like that. And I encourage anyone who works for me, just speak your mind and be, you know, and people want to see personable people, don't they? Right. You know, so yeah.
They do. So what is that? And I know we'll go into this in you know, more detail. What was that moment like then, in the sense of, should I share this or should I not? And when did you kind of, because if people are listening, you know, I'm incredibly humble when people PM me on LinkedIn, mainly on different socials or email, and they'll say, you know, I don't feel brave enough to share this, or I don't, you know, and because it may affect my job, it may affect my career or the friends or the family. And I don't know personally what that kind of felt like, you know, especially in the, you know, corporate sector, I guess I was in when it was undiagnosed. But what is that kind of for yourself? When did you get to that stage where you thought, actually, I'm okay to start posting this content and be a little bit more personal?
ADHD or just generally?
In ADHD, or yeah, generally in that sense, because I think it does bring. There must have been a pivotal moment where you made a decision. You thought, like you said, you know, I'm gonna share this, and I know it's like, oh, you know, should I?
Yeah, I think I mean, when I was diagnosed, I remember I was waiting for the report, and I think from my journey, which I don't know how much we'll go into, but it was pretty obvious I was going to be diagnosed. I think from the off, because I think when you go through that process and you talk your story through, I mean, I was lucky enough to go privately, so I had that communication that I almost readied myself for it, if that made sense. So I had a lot to think about how if the chances are I'm going to be diagnosed here, and how am I going to react to it? Because I remember leading up to it, and I'm going a bit off piece here, apologies, but like, you know, it was very much about, what will your diagnosis do for you at the age of 41 at the time? You know, what will that do for you? And the big thing for me was, I know we mentioned around validation, but the other bit was about to spread awareness. You know, like, everyone associates ADHD with the 7-year-old kid at school who's bouncing around and being really, really naughty. I was never naughty at school. I was all right. You know, I wasn't a world beater. I didn't do very well in my exams, but I wasn't like kicked out of class a lot and stuff like that. And there's that stigma, isn't there? And I thought to myself, I've got a platform. I do, you know, and a lot of it associates with talking about other stuff, but ADHD is so important, and other and obviously other areas of neurodiversity is so important that I'm going to talk about it. And I think, so I was on holiday when I got diagnosed, the report came through and I was like, right. So I sat there and immediately, impulsively, I went, right, I'm going to tell everyone. It was just like that. It wasn't like, I always said I was going to talk about it, but I didn't know when or how. And I literally just did it, you know. So first I posted on Facebook to all my friends and stuff like that. Because I literally didn't really tell a lot of people. My close family, obviously my business partner knew, my employees knew I was going through this process, but no one really outside of that. I I qualify as friends really on Facebook. I don't know these days, but I did that first, and then I was like, right. I came back from holiday, and you know, when you see people come back from holiday with work to say, "Oh, I'm back," you know, especially in recruitment, people need to know you're back. And I thought, I'm back from holiday, but I've come back with news, and I posted, and like immediately I started getting, obviously you're engaged, you know what it's like, you get your engagement and stuff like that. But I started getting a lot of personal messages, obviously a lot of comments, and it was like, fair play to you, you know, like, and you then get the people ringing you up or messaging going, I did kind of think a little bit, but yeah. And I think with the, in answer to your question, you know, it is confidence. And I suppose I was a little bit lucky in regards that I've been posting consistently for a number of years and stuff like that, and built a follow. Well, I say I'm no social media guru, but you know, I've built a bit of a following, and it was a little bit easy for me. But some of the stuff I'm talking about with my ADHD is pretty personal, you know, and it's like, and I know that there will be people out there who probably go, is that really necessary for you to do that? But I think, as you know, I've been through life so misunderstood, like really misunderstood. I've misunderstood myself on occasions, but I know a lot of people have misunderstood me. You know, whether they think when they first meet me, you know, I'm a bit awkward. you know, they think I'm rude. I'm not. I'm a really nice guy, but I'm misunderstood from that. You know, and I think that raising that awareness and being so transparent is really, really important. And you know, like I said, I do have a following. I do have a platform, and the more people that see that and hear that, then I think the better, mate. To be honest,
I think it's
a good answer there. Sorry, but.
No, it was a brilliant answer, and I think it's, you know, it's commendable in the sense that, because you have grown a following, and you have grown a following in the sense of the, you know, the incredible work that you're doing and the content you're putting out and helping people continuously. And I feel, you know, some people can make that decision. They can say, actually, I'm going to keep it very professional, and I'm not going to mention this because of that side of it. And you know, they may only have a handful of people on their social channels, but when you have a larger number, it is that tipping point where you think, actually, is it gonna, because it goes through the back of your mind when, which we'll go on shortly as well, when you're applying for a job, you know, should I input the CV? Should I mention I have dyslexia? Should I mention I have ADHD? Is that going to get me through the the interview process? Is it not? You know, all these things, whether we like it or not, goes through our minds. And I think the more we have where we can share our stories, and you actively, you're a very successful businessman, and you're talking about it. I think you'll never really know, Rich, the impact it has had on people. I always think it's like a pebble effect, because there'll be so many people that message you, and there'll be so many people that don't message you, but you've touched their lives.
We get it a lot where I'll write some pretty blunt, honest stuff about recruitment, and you know, like how people hire people and how people go about it. I know there'll be people out there who probably want to like that post, but they can't or they won't, but they see it, you know, and it's the same with neurodiversity. You know, like there's a lot of people out there who may think they're neurodiverse, or they might be going through the process, or they are neurodiverse, but don't tell anyone. And they think, oh, if I like that, then so-and-so will see that and they'll know and stuff like that. But like, I had a meeting this morning with a really big drinks client, and on the topic agenda was neurodiversity, because they obviously know that I have ADHD, and they know that I'm super passionate about, you know, raising awareness about it, but also implementing that into getting people into work who are neurodiverse, but also accommodating the people that are neurodiverse. And if I'm not talking about it, I will never have these conversations. If I hadn't told people that I had ADHD, I don't think that a lot of the stuff that I'm doing has the clout, you know, behind it, you know, like the reasons behind why I do it. And, you know, both Lucy and I, Lucy's my business partner, you know, she's dyslexic as well. So we're both of us are neurodiverse as founders. And it generally means something. You know, we're not a business where I think we've got to be very careful in this society where there's a lot of things that happen because people want to hear stuff. We are like, well, we will do it. You know, we won't just say it, we will actually do it because it means something to us. That's what's really, really important. And talking about it, people know that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, business has changed, I guess, you know, from, you know, many years ago where it was kind of, you know, the brand was the logo and that was it. And you never sort of saw past the logo and the, you know, people behind the business and the brand. And I remember really kind of, you know, years ago being an entrepreneur myself, you know, thinking about, you know, say Richard Branson. And I guess that was the first time that I could see the person behind the brand, and it was almost like he's building a personal brand, and he's also building, you know, the business behind it. And it was, you know, I got some kind of good learnings from that in the sense of how you can be more personable, and I guess, you know, it's weighed out sometimes because people think, well, actually, you do need to be a massive, huge brand to start showing the behind the scenes. Is it going to look less professional? Yeah. I personally don't think it is. I think the more, if you can stay professional, absolutely. Yeah, but in that, you know, whatever professional looks like, you know, it's like whatever does normal look like. But I think behind the scenes of showing that and showing the people behind it, I think people can resonate more.
I think we call ourselves at Marvel uncorporate but professional.
Love it.
Like we like, I couldn't think of anything worse than, I mean, it just wouldn't suit me as a person. I respect people who want to go and work in a really corporate environment because that's a choice, isn't it? You know, and that's what, you know, we want to provide. We want to provide choice. But, you know, for us, like in our business, we're bloody good at what we do. But with, you know, going back to content or whether it's that personal stuff and things like that, that how you portray that image, we want to create a brand that's super enjoyable, that people love. Because you've got to remember, in our industry, more often than not, people hear it's surrounded by negativity. So it could be 4 people go for a job. Only 1 person is going to get that job. So 3 people are going to get a negative outcome. We want them to have a really cool experience with us and our clients, obviously. And I think us having people who are really personable and showing that they care and all that type of stuff and putting that personal nature into your business, it just goes such a long way in business. It really does. You know, you're 100% right.
The fact that, you know, take someone with ADHD or dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, you know, the list goes on. When they're going through that process of applying for a job, the whole process without, you know, support from, you know, the incredible work that you do. But if I was to sit here today, or someone was to sit here today and say, I'm going to apply for a job, and they go on to, you know, the different search engines to find these jobs, the process can be so daunting. And then if you get through that process, it's then the next stage, and then sometimes it's you don't even get a reply, or you get that reply saying you weren't successful. Emotionally, from an ADHD point of view, personally, that could be really demoralizing for anyone, but can be really demoralizing. And that isn't just an instant thing. This could last for a very long period of time and then stop the process of you then applying again.
I mean, it's the whole rejection sensitive dysphoria thing, isn't it?
That's
and
the word.
That is something that I never knew anything about until 4 months ago, I think it was. I was on Instagram, as I'm sure you do. You probably follow people who are like, you know, talk about ADHD on Instagram and stuff. And I saw that RSD and I was like, oh my God, yeah. But imagine that when you're out of work, made redundant or something like that, and you're applying for jobs daily and getting shot down. And don't be wrong, that there are people who will get very, you know, because of easy apply on LinkedIn now and things like that, but they will apply for a lot. And there's a lot of stuff that they may not be relevant for. But you then got to think to yourself, how I think about it is like you put yourself in that person's situation. You know, they may be out of work. They may be worried about when's the next time I'm going to be able to put food on the table. Generally, I've spoken to people like that, especially during COVID, like when that happened. And on top of that, you may have ADHD and you've got and that RSD really kicks in. That can send you into a seriously bad place. But all you want is, not everyone's gonna be right for a job, right? That's common sense. But you deserve to hear why you might not be right. You deserve to hear something. Yeah. And I think that's where the human element comes into it. Whether it's, I mean, neurodiversity or not, not being neurodiverse, it shouldn't matter really. But I know it hits harder, like you say, when you have ADHD, because that rejection side of it is really bad.
Yeah, it really is. And I guess, the not knowing, the not receiving anything back is difficult. Receiving what can be seen sometimes as a generic message, someone else was more successful than you, or they fit the role criteria more. And then obviously there's another stage. I mean, you'll know more about this, but in the sense of, asking for feedback, and then they give you some feedback. And then I guess if you're applying for a plethora of jobs and then each one then gives you different feedback, it can be a little bit confusing of what do I need to work on for this? But I know the whole process can be massively rewarding, don't get me wrong, if you land the job that you want to get. But also the process can be
it's tough. And look, recruiters, let's face it, are the ones that get the most flack when it comes to feedback. But that's, again, linking back to the being founders and, wanting and knowing how that feels, implement stuff into our business. So, we aim to get back to everyone within 2 working days. The opposite you see of that of a lot of adverts where it says, if you haven't heard back from us within 7 days, you've been unsuccessful. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, right, well, we'll do the opposite to that, because that sets us aside. And look, we don't always get it right. No one's perfect. We may give the wrong feedback. We may miss an application. But we try as much as we can to do that, because it accommodates that.
But acknowledging that, Rich, is powerful, and that's what I love about it, is acknowledging. And I think that's the true way of when you're analyzing when you're going into an industry which is notoriously, whatever industry you're going into, you're always looking, what's the good things about the industry, and what's the challenges that have that industry? How can I better this, and how can I counteract some of the challenges? And straight away, by listening to yourself, okay, so we might get back to you, if in 7 days, or sometimes you won't. And I think highlighting that is powerful. And like you said, we're all human at the end of the day. We don't necessarily get everything right, but I think highlighting that from the off, that's a powerful thing to do.
I think recruitment needs, hiring, just genuine processes just needs to massively change. Like sort of ways of working, how we work now, and is it 5 days a week in the office? Is it hybrid working? Is it work from home? That kind of big lenses on that at the moment about how we work and what that accommodates. Same with hiring as well. We've kind of been hiring the same way for 40 years.
Do you think that
same 40 years ago? It's like,
it is quite confusing, isn't it? You've hit a really good topic there. It's really confusing in the sense that, what is the expectation, I guess, for someone who's looking to, to be, to go into the corporate sector, let's just say, or whatever sector, is it 5 days? Is it 4 days? Is it in the office? Is it not in the office? Is it hybrid working? What does that look like? Do I travel? It has got a very confusing in that sense, but the historic side of the actual corporate world is very much the same in that sense. So that can be.
I wrote a post this week. I don't know if you've seen it. It's gone a bit mental, but I wrote a post saying, if you gave me a job that was 5 days a week in the office, 9 to 5, I would not recruit on it, because I would rule out working parents, neurodiverse, disabled, people who can't afford to travel 5 days a week. And then it just went off. It went viral. It's got 1 million views, but it's also caused a huge debate. If you read the feed on it, there is a real good debate. And that, my point was, like, I couldn't care less if someone were to go in the office 5 days a week. That's up to you. But you need to provide it. We need, as a society now, in working world, corporate, non-corporate, we need to provide a choice. Like for me, before coronavirus, when all this kind of fast-tracked how we potentially would work, I would have days, obviously I was undiagnosed then, but I would have days, I struggle with noise around me, and I struggle with being distracted. And so working from home for me on occasions really works, especially now, like how busy I am. So like, I was asking for that before COVID. I was asking, look, can I have a day from home? Or now, if you're rigid on that 5-day structure and you're like, no, that's what it is, think about all those people that and that's just me being neurodiverse. There's so many people that need some sort of flexibility. But if you want to go in 5 days a week, that's great. You know, that's fine. I mean, I also think that there's got to be presence in the office, because how can you build a culture? But I think the key bits are choice and balance in today's society.
OrCam Learn. World's most innovative learning enhancement solution, designed specifically for people with learning challenges. Personal AI, natural language processing, sleek design, high-resolution visual sensor, laser capture, aim and frame, laser pointer, one-word focus. Read text aloud from any surface. Full-page text capture.
While those who Mary saw slunk or hurried about with ashy and scared faces.
Let's read.
Go ahead and start reading.
Why did you come? She said to the strange woman. I will not let you stay. Send my ayah to me.
That was wonderful. Well done.
In-depth web app. Bluetooth connectivity. Safe to use in school exams. Designed to empower. K-12 through college. Increased independence and confidence. A friction-free learning experience. OrCam Learn.
I think that, and so, you know, beautifully put. And why do you think that is, Rich? And again, this is just a personal experience, personal, you know, thought of this. Do you think it's down to the fact now that we want people want their staff into the organization so they can keep an eye on them, or they can nourish that, you know, nurture that relationship in the sense of, you know, the camaraderie side of it. It like you said, it's trying to find that balance, isn't it? Of why can I work, you know, why do I need to sit in the office as opposed to working remote?
Yeah, I think there's a few trains of thought, isn't it? Obviously, look, the economy is one. The economy needs to be boosted. We all know that. And people not traveling into an office means people aren't spending, people aren't going to the pub after work for drinks. And I get all that. I totally get that. But I think people are scared of change. You know, like, if I speak, I guarantee I'll speak to some clients, like when we talk about our no CV process, they'll be like, what the, no way, absolutely no way. And it's the same with like the ways of working. But I think personally, and my view is obviously my personal view, but it's also the view of the hundreds and thousands of candidates that we speak to. And candidates have a voice now in work. Your employees have a voice. And you're never going to be able to please anyone. That post this week proved that you will never be able to please everyone. It's impossible. Everyone will have a view. Everyone will have an opinion. And, you know, like, so it's either one thing you go, all right, well, it's either 5 days or nothing. But then I guarantee you, like in what I recruit in, sales and marketing for food and drink brands, I would really, really struggle to fill a job 5 days a week in the office. If that's all it is, non-negotiable, I would. So it's going to be really interesting over the next 12 to 18 months how businesses react. And I think there's some that are really progressive that will just go, it's hybrid and that is it. And then they'll give people the choice. But there will be some who will go, it is 5 days. And I'm going to be very intrigued to see how that materializes, because from a talent perspective, are you really going to get the full mix of what you need based on that? It's going to be yeah, I mean, I don't think I've got a right or wrong answer to it, to be honest. But
no, and I think that's the, you know, it's great to have a healthy debate within that, and understand that what people's preferences are and what they prefer, you know, within this sense. But I guess businesses in their business model, they're set up in a historic way, in the sense of, okay, because, you know, starting a business, whatever industry you're in, there's a process that you know, you need sales, you need marketing, you need admin, you need accounts, you know, regardless of what your final output is, whether you know, whatever it is you're doing, there's a process that you know, you go through. And I guess that's the structure that needs to change in order for the recruitment process to be more streamlined, in that sense, that, you know, you're bringing more candidates into an environment that they can work in synergy within this. But it's that environment, is that structure, isn't it, that they have to kind of relook at, and that's a tough one to pull out.
There are some seriously big businesses looking at all that, you know, like, because D&I is on everyone's agenda. It's number one for a lot of businesses, especially the bigger players. And it's like, right, okay, so how do we improve that? How do we make it better? And I think, look, what we see a lot of companies do is, like, it's such a massive topic, you can't go after everything, otherwise you'll just be a busy fool. You kind of got to go after one. You got to kind of focus on one bit and absolutely nail that. So, but people, you know, is one of the most important things, because the more diverse pool of talent that you have, surely that is going to boost your, you know, your employee sort of inclusivity. It really is. So yeah.
Absolutely, which brings me very nicely on to the topic I really want to have a conversation about, was the no CV.
Yeah.
Where you know, when I first was following the content, and I remember you mentioning about this, I was so intrigued, because I was thinking, okay, that's such a breath of fresh air to hear this. What was the kind of the process and the thinking behind that, and how is it being kind of received in that sense?
So I thought about it at 9:30 at night in a Greek restaurant. That's how it came, by staring at a placemat. I was so random, I know, but I did. It was so odd. We were out with work and we were talking about, you know, like, you know, when you have like work chat and it kind of gets into work chat, and it's like we should be talking about stuff outside of work, but we weren't. We were talking about work. And I was just looking at it, and everyone's talking about the CV, going about how length of a CV, and, you know, how people get judged on a CV, you know, and a lot of it was focused around like gaps. That's the big one. Oh, you have gaps on a CV, or they haven't worked for 6 months, let's say. So immediately you're penalised. And I was like, wouldn't it be amazing? Because this is how it started. Because, you know, like, an idea always starts with something and then it kind of grows. So I said, like, wouldn't it be amazing if, and I looked at this placemat, I was like, wouldn't it be amazing? I picked up the placemat and I was like, wouldn't it be amazing if your CV was just like this, and it was just a load of good stuff that you've done, all your strengths and achievements, and there was no chronology to it. It was just like almost like a PDF, say, of you, showcasing you. And then you go to a client, right, you've given me this job, here's this person, this is what they can bring for you, and this is like an amazing. Now, they could be anyone behind that, but you're not going to know. You're just going to look at the skills of what they've got, look at their achievements of what they've done and what they've achieved in life and in their career. So it started off with that. And then I kind of woke up the next morning, when I've got an idea, that's it then. There is no turning back, I'm afraid. So I was like, right, what are we going to do? So start off with it. I had this idea. We're going to have a process with no CV. People are like, what? You can't do that. I was like, we can. Honestly, I genuinely believe in it. So the first thing I did was I picked up the phone to some people I really trusted that I've recruited for in brands. And they're like, you know, some leading food and drink brands. They're all probably in your houses now. The guy, and what I did was I purposely went across a different like spectrum of disciplines. So someone I really know well in HR, someone I know really well in talent, someone I know really well who's sales director, a marketing director. I just picked up the phone and said, look, I've come up with this idea. What do you think? And I also knew that they were also quite advocates of D&I. And this is all about this giving people a brilliant career, and everyone deserves a chance and everyone deserves an opportunity. And this is like, you've got to have that at the back of your mind and what we're striving for. But actually some of the stuff that's come out of it is even better than that. So they were like, well, I think you're a bit mad. I was like, but, you know, so then what I did was, I was like, right. So Lucy and I thought, right, we'll put together almost like a bit of a task force of these people. So I'll get all these people from these leading food and drink brands. I'll get them together and they'll be like a project team. Brilliant. Right. But now we need someone who's going to help us design it. Because, like, you know, there's a lot that goes into an inclusive recruitment process. So we then asked Jo Major to come on. She's absolutely amazing. So she kind of hosted the whole process. So we got together and basically, I think we met 4 times, I think. So 4 like big meetings around what does it look like? And there was, and it caused debate. I mean, obviously there's a lot of debates on like, and the reason why we got a mixture of people was because we wanted that. We wanted to be challenged around what could this look like? But we all had this common goal. Anyway, so we've managed to get to a point where we were really satisfied with what we've got, but it needed software. So we then partnered with Applied, who's the software business that we use. So there's tech behind it. I mean, I am like not tech. So in fact, a technophobe. But the tech is amazing, like literally amazing. And then it was like, right, we're good to go. So we've designed it. It's like basically you base it on skills. That's what it's about. And we're now at the point where we've just got signed off a 4th job yesterday, where, to be honest, I didn't think we'd have one to start. So I thought we'd have to really kind of push, but people have heard it works, and now we're starting to see traction on it, and people are really open to it, which is amazing.
It's an amazing achievement, Rich, and it's the building blocks of something massive. And I guess what you're trying to do really is change historically the way that the system is put in place, and having that change is not going to be an overnight thing, because you have to change the mindset of how someone would additionally apply for a position, and also as well, it's the receiving of that, isn't it? It's how someone would want to have the information for that candidate for their organization. So it's a double-ended sword within that side of it.
CV we've been using since we're fax machines. You know, it's like, it's the same thing, isn't it? And you think to yourself, I mean, and don't be wrong, I'm not writing off a CV. I'm not. But what I am saying is, what my biggest objective for this year is to get people to think differently. You know, that is the big thing. And this will cause, it will cause debate. It will cause people to look at it and go, oh, I wonder what that's like. And the big thing is, like, we will constantly take feedback. This process that we've got at the moment is not perfect. So, for example, you know, we recently had like one where the competency-based interview came through, and it was really hard to get people's personality to come through, because it is quite structured, because every candidate has to have the same competency-based questions. You can't deviate, because then you're causing potential bias. So that's a bit we're really trying to work on, to get a combination of showcasing someone's skills, but then getting their personality to come through. Because let's face it, that's super important as well in a process.
It really is. I just want to bring up Olive Hitmot, an incredible individual. If you're not following her, then please do. She shares some incredible insights. She's put, what about identifying the candidate's strengths instead of a CV? Neurodivergent candidates have loads of 21st century devices, thinking skills based on exceptional visual thinking and learning that businesses desperately need. Thank you so much for sharing that. What's your thoughts on that, Rich?
So the way the no CV process works, I mean, I'm like, for example, me personally, if I had to go apply for a job now, I'd struggle to write a CV, because I just would look at it and go, can't be bothered. And you would put it off. Let's face it, you would. But also as well, it's like the stage of the process, like, you know, I need to apply. Now I need to write a cover letter. Now I've got to go through all these stages. Oh, and you now have to wait. And then, so I know what it's like to apply for a job for a neurodivergent, but I also know what it's like, because how you can showcase your skills, like she said in there. So like for me, I was never the school prefect. I was never the top, I never looked like the top performer in anything I've done. But I can tell you now, I'm an overachiever in everything I've done though. But I don't look like it, and I don't walk the walk of it. In a corporate world, that's why part of the reason why I would never fit in a corporate world, because I don't toe the line. I don't sort of follow the way everyone else will. And that, when you think about it, putting it onto a CV and also interviewing, that is bloody difficult to get that across. Really hard. And also the way certainly someone with ADHD can interview, you can go off a massive tangent, and then they go, well, they're not sticking to the point. They're really going around the houses here. What's the point? But actually, my output is incredible, but it's how I get there. So the big thing around what we provided and the way this process works is you get skills assessments, and you can fill those out in your own time. So it gives you the opportunity to be creative. You can add things in that you want to do. You can put your own stamp on it. There is no right way of doing it. And then these assessments that we give them based on what our client is looking for each specific role, they then look at those and they have no idea who you are. They have no idea what you do. They are simply basing it based on your answer. And that's amazing. And like some of the people that we've had come through, the results already within two of the jobs that we've placed, one of the jobs we placed, a guy got the job over people so the guy wasn't doing the actual job. He got the job over people who were actually doing the job. So that was one. Then the other one was completely out of the industry and beat people who were doing the job, to it. And it's, if you're showcasing those skills, that's what's great.
Yeah. I think it's also as well, which is fantastic. It is when we talk about the CV and the cover letter and the waiting period, and then you get this ad hoc email or a call, and they say, actually, we'd like to talk over your CV. For me, we spoke about this offline. From my ADHD point of view, and we mentioned as well, the short-term memory in the sense of thinking about, when someone just ad hoc says, give me some information or something like this, that in a sense is really difficult for me. So if I was to apply for a position and put this, fantastic CV together and all these different things, and then they start questioning in it. Now, I'm not saying that what I put on the CV would be a lie in any way, shape, or form, but I couldn't probably remember, because the state I'd have to be in to create a CV that needed to be worded in the way that someone would receive it in a certain way isn't in my everyday working life. So when questioned about it, that I will find difficult, because I was going, did I write that? So then you're in a situation when people might think, is he lying? Did he lie on the CV? And you're like, no, I'm not.
Don't lie in an interview or your CV. You definitely get found out, mate. I wouldn't encourage that.
No.
I know exactly what you mean. It's so like, I mean, we get people, we've had CVs bounced. I mean, here's a good one for you. I had someone bounce the CV from us recently because of the way it was formatted, and it had spelling mistakes on it. And I went back going, what happens if they're dyslexic? And they were like, well, that's, so, and it's that way of thinking, isn't it? It's like, that's just an example of it. And it's like, you've said no to that CV based on an assumption that they can't spell and they can't format a CV. But actually, how do you know they're not dyslexic? They're not going to put that on their CV. So this is what we're trying to do in removing that bias. And because bias is everywhere. It's in you, it's in me, and it's like, if you can intentionally remove that, then I personally think we'll start to get people thinking really, really differently.
Yeah, I think it's that, as you mentioned, thinking differently and the out of the box thinking side of it. I remember in my corporate years when I was climbing the retail ladder, so to speak, using that terminology. And I remember I was going for I was quite high up senior position. I was going for an even, more senior position. And I remember we had to go for this assessment day, which was 2 or 3 days of interview process, all these different kind of psychometric tests and everything else. This was all with undiagnosed dyslexia, which was really difficult. I remember everyone would go into the interview and they would all do a PowerPoint presentation on their role that they had to do. But for me, I couldn't do this because I really struggled with this. So I remember getting a flip chart and drawing pictures, and I had 10 sheets. And I remember this very vividly. Sorry, not vividly. I remember it so much that when I walked into the room and they'd had 9 PowerPoint presentations of people applying for this job and saying, you know, what they were doing. When I put the flip chart onto the table and flipped the first thing, they actually thought I was taking the mick. They actually said, "You're not taking this seriously." And the other candidates that were there looking for the next role started laughing. But I tell you what, 3 slides in, took 3 slides, 3 slides in, I got them. And it was something different. And I managed to get that position, whether it was from the flip chart or not flip chart or my achievements. But it was, I remember afterwards them coming up and saying, you know, you were very brave for doing something out of the box and different. And I remember saying, well, and I thought to myself, I didn't do it. That's the only way that I can portray that information to you. But it was funny how it was perceived that way.
We, I think, because also the other good thing, going right back to when we started this podcast, was that, you know, because people know that we're big advocates of this as a company, both founders being neurodiverse and all the great innovative things we're doing, candidates who work with us are a lot more open about their neurodiversity. So like recently I had someone message me going, got an interview next week, but I know you all understand. I'm quite keen to have some adjustments made, and this is why. Now, I imagine ordinarily to a lot of other recruitment companies or hiring companies, they wouldn't have done that. So that's why it's really important for us as a business, because we want people to go, most importantly, we want everyone to enjoy their interview. I always say to people, go and enjoy your interview, because if you enjoy it, you'll perform so much better. But also you want them to feel comfortable, right? You know, if someone's coming to work for you, you don't want them there to be like a bag of nerves. You don't want them to be worrying about how they're going to perform, around what questions they've got coming if they really can't think that way. You want them to be really comfortable, relaxed, and able to perform in that interview as best they can. And I think we're now slowly moving into a place where companies are a lot more accommodating, you know, with that. And I know there'll be the bits around, oh, you know, if I send you the questions before, you're going to have an advantage. My response is, oh, try having ADHD and then answer that question to me, or, you know, try being dyslexic, or, you know, whichever. We're immediately at an advantage or a disadvantage already, you know. So I think that's super important when you talk about anything like interview, anything about applying for a job, is that we're a lot more open-minded about things. And that's all we ask. The best person will still get the job, right? You know, but it's giving everyone that opportunity to be able to perform at their best in an interview.
Absolutely spot on. I always think when someone says, you know, when they say we're going to send the questions on beforehand for you to review, I always feel more nervous that I have you know, these years ago that I'd have the questions, because I would think to myself, I need to prep even more. So they're expecting a much bigger answer than I probably would have given on the day. It's probably a wrong way of thinking about that. But again, when we talk about ADHD or dyslexia, dyscalculia, we have to also, from an organization point of view, I understand how difficult it can be because the scale is so massive. You know, my ADHD would be different to your ADHD. Your ADHD would be different to someone else. So when companies are looking to employ someone and they say, oh, well, that someone's got ADHD, you know, such and such as ADHD, we know how to work and manage that. It doesn't. It has to be from the individual's point of view of how we can best make that relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, like I look at, for example, between my son and me, our ADHDs are very different. You know, like my hyperactivity is in here. You know, it's pretty. I mean, I'm very hyperactive now, but like his is quite physical. It's quite obvious, and there are so many different things that differ. That again, it's not a one size fits all when it even comes to like ADHD. So I think just knowing is the best thing, isn't it? And then you can accommodate.
Absolutely. I want to bring in Olive again. Thank you, Olive, for your comments. They really do help within the show. But as a company director, I once tore up a psychometric test for an undisclosed dyslexic candidate. Offered him a job, and he was exceptional. Went on to have a fantastically successful career. Thank you so much, Olive, for sharing that. I remember back in my retail days, and I won't mention the organization that I work for, but if you check my link, you probably get it. But I won't mention it on here. And this was years and years ago. Now, the recruitment process for a general assistant, and I remember this, thinking back on it, and I wish I kept the card. Purely for my own, you know, not to put on social media in any way, shape, or form. But you'd get the 3-page booklet Okay, so you'd have the picture of the organization on the front, and then it would have a series of 20 questions, and then there'll be numbers 1 to 10 across the top, all the way down, and you'd have to circle which number you felt worked best for you. So it would be how best you work with someone, do you work well on your own, all these different questions, and you would circle all of these questions. But here was the thing: to mark those, to get someone to the next interview, and I'm hopefully they don't do this anymore, they'd have this template with holes in it, and you would hold it to the back of the thing where you've done all the holes. If the holes didn't match, you'd get a score at the bottom, and then those would then go to the left and not be interviewed. Those and the ones that scored higher would go to the right, and they would be. From a recruitment point of view, what do you think about that?
Awful. Yeah, it's dreadful, isn't it? I mean, I think don't get me wrong, there are still some things that still happen that I think people have done for like 10 to 20 years. I mean, job descriptions, I mean, where do we start with those? So you can dig a job description out from like 2010, you're kind of like, come on, which got, you must have a degree on, or, and don't get me wrong, I know there are some jobs that you will require, advanced education and things like that. But, again, it's just another example of how far we need to move in recruitment and interviewing and just everything. I just think we're in a different world now, and we really need to react to that.
I think the job description side of it, as you so rightly put, Rich, can come across sometimes a bit confusing, because I've read some before, and I'm thinking, is this just for one person? Because the job description is so large. I mean, it's absolutely humongous, and I'm thinking, and you have to have, tick all of these boxes in this sense, and then
that's it. Because I get people who are neurodiverse say to me, I don't have that, because obviously, I think a lot of people take things literally, don't they? And they'll go, well, I don't have 5 years experience, so I can't apply, or I'm not right for this. And you're like, you ask a hiring manager, so they don't have 5 years, but they've got 4 years, 11 months. Is that okay? Yes. Well, why are you putting it on there then? It's
Yeah, it is a bit confusing, isn't it, in that sense? But I guess it's a lot of it as well is how, past the application form and everything else, is what's beautiful now is people are looking at the organization, and it is that two-way thing, which you so rightly said at the start. I have a position, and then it's like, do I want to work for you? And it's that, and that's the way that we've got to that in society now. We're working towards that, is that, you want to just work for a company, don't just want to work for a company just for a paycheck. You want to align in some way with their ethics and the way that they work and what these things are. And I think that's a lot different from, say, 20 years ago when we're looking at this.
I mean, we get for us, we're a B Corp business. We're part of the B Corp community. We will get people who go, I want to work for a brand that's purpose-led. I want to work for a brand that means something to me. I want to work for a B Corp because of what it means and stuff like that. So you get that, and people now, I think COVID gave us a big reset in our lives around everything, as we know, not just work. But I think what I've noticed, obviously working in the industry before coronavirus versus working it after, is so many people have now I want to go to work and be happy. And what we always work on, all my guys, whenever they speak to a candidate, is what's important to you and what will make you happy. If you find what's important to you, you will go to work happy, guarantee it. And that could be, it's the littlest of things of going, I want to do school drop off, or it could be, I want to get promoted in the next 2 years, so I need that progression, or I want to work for a brand that is ethically there and makes a difference to the planet. As long as you find that, you'll be happy. And then when you're happy, you wake up in the morning, you look forward to go to work. I mean, it's not hard, is it? But,
Absolutely. And that's all we want, really, is just to be happy and find our purpose. Rich, we're coming up to the end of our talk, and I cannot thank you enough for taking time out and sharing your words of wisdom around this. And again, a massive thank you for the stuff that you're doing for the neurodiverse community and sharing the content.